Morning, welcome everyone to our study session for October 5th. First item, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Director James Thurman.
Present.
Assistant Secretary Arlene Schaefer.
Here.
Secretary Robert Uten.
Here.
Vice President Arthur Terry.
Here.
And President Michael Schaefer.
Here. Thank you. First item on the agenda is public comments. We have one, and I assume, Tom, you're filling out another one? Yeah. Okay. Jim, you're first up.
Thank you, Mr. President. How long do you allocate for public comments?
3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. President, member of the board, I just wanted to come and speak about the concerning behaviors of this board in light of an important topic of consolidation. I find your actions to be inconsistent with fiduciary responsibility to the ratepayers. I think that this document that you've published highlights many of those concerns. I just think you guys are going about this all wrong. The one thing that Councilmember Guinness asked last night at the City Council meeting when this was being discussed is, what number, how many millions of dollars does the Costa Mesa Sanitary District think that the ratepayer will save through the efforts of consolidation? I'm here to say that the board has not produced that. It was the same thing when I came here asking you about trash rates, trying to figure out Newport Beach's trash rates and compare, and I was told, well, they just won't tell us, okay? Here in this, you just got it all wrong. The public record request is amateur at best. They performed 2 studies, no kidding, they had a low-level cost to say what you guys should be able to do in your head. Hey, you have duplicate buildings, you have duplicate staff, you have all of these other elements. That's millions of dollars of savings right there. So they elevated and said, let's do a deeper dive. You guys still have not even asked the question, how much will it save? I think this whole thing missed the opportunity. You guys could be the surviving entity. I think many of these claims are right, but you haven't done your job to figure it out. Okay, so let's look at this. So, first of all, on the first page, Mark Davis is a great guy. He's a fine gentleman. He is also the spouse of your director of finance. And if you guys can't see that as a conflict of interest, while you sit here and talk in a collegial way about how we're so transparent, it's embarrassing that this study has been performed. What self-respecting husband is going to write a report that says, yes, dear, you should be out of a job? Okay? That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that you have Mesa Water's contact information here and you don't even have your own board here, for those of us that would like to object to the behaviors here at the board. Okay? The grand jury study was something that I brought forward in 2011 when I asked this board to consider consolidation. You referenced the wrong grand jury report here. The other grand jury report is Let There Be Light. In there it has a famous quote about Reagan, and it calls for the consolidation. Last night, your board president didn't even have an answer to a council member who said, do you have a reserve for trash? It was published this week. You do have reserves for trash, to the tune of a whopping $5.2 million super fund without any infrastructure. And your board president could not answer that question publicly.
You have 3 minutes to that.
Last thing,
You have 3 minutes to that.
the board is here.
Jim, you have 3 minutes to that.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
I'm going to come up that way?
Yes, sir. We're recording.
We to do it? Good morning. My name is Tom Johnson. Longtime member of the community. Ran the Daily Pilot for about 18, 19 years. Recently, I took a position as president of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm working with the CEO, who I'd like to introduce. One of the reasons I wanted to come by today is Eileen Benjamin is the new CEO of the Chamber of Commerce.
Hello and good morning.
Morning.
There's been some concern. Eileen and I came aboard the first part of August. And up to that point, there were some different actions taken by the Chamber of Commerce. In my earliest days, I got a call from you, Jim, asking questions about where the Chamber of Commerce is on the stance of a merger or the combination of Mesa Water and Costa Mesa Sanitary. I think where Eileen and I sit is the Costa Mesa Chamber does not want to be involved in that decision. That's a decision for the community to make, and we will support that. decision. We have, apparently a couple of board members have spoken before Mesa Water on several occasions, and I think you've taken exception to that. Understand that Eileen and I represent the chamber executive team. We can't speak for the board. There was an incident at the last meeting about some materials that were displayed and then they were taken off or whatever. You know, I wish we could control, I wish we could make certain that everybody's display works fine and everything like that, but at a function like that, I guess it just slipped through. We'll take better care of that moving forward. And I just want to
I just want to interrupt you to say, I apologize, but I don't want to.
I mean, we need to up here, we're recording.
Okay, sure. I just don't want to underestimate, how we feel. We know it's important to you. We know that this is an important topic. We're not trying to avoid, helping or one side or the other. It's really a problem of making sure we are developing the right infrastructure for our chamber as we move forward. We have new leadership there, so we're in a real tough position as we try to build a stronger business community in Costa Mesa. And part of that is going to include our GAC committee, our Government Advisory Committee, to have metrics that are going to measure the impact on business here in Costa Mesa. And once we have that threshold met, then we'll jump in on topics. But we have to have a measurable application, if you will, especially when we have two cherished and valued members and long-term members of our chamber on either side of an issue. So we're trying to build our chamber without getting into the firestorm. And I just really hope that everyone around this table and in the community understands that we're thinking of our chamber and our business, and we totally value your group.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you both very much for being
Very
with us. We appreciate your time and being with us this morning. Mr. Mosher, you didn't indicate which item. Oh, it was scratched off, so. That's fine, Jim, I've got it, thank you. Okay, anyone else from the public wishing to, we have another cards, so we'll move into our items of study. Scott, item B1, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So the citizen survey was just a kind of a good background history on the survey. So the board approved a budget for this service of $30,000, and it was approved by the board in June 2015. In December of 2015, we discussed the survey and discussed possibly going out to RFPs to solicit consultants to conduct the survey. The board decided to hold off on doing that, waiting longer for the organic recycling program to be implemented a little bit longer. And so that's what we did, and that's why we're here today, that we wanted to wait for the whole organic program to be implemented at least for a good year. We met with, I think it was last week, we had a special meeting on the survey, and we had Justin here from Hrabowski's Research, which was awarded the contract to help answer questions, and he put together a bunch of questions for you to consider. There was a list of, I think, 75 questions. I don't believe we can answer all 75 questions in particular in the time of about 20 minutes. Right?
Correct.
So to do 20 minutes, you need, 35 questions?
Right.
So what's up to you now is you got 75 before you. You need to narrow it down to 35. So you need some direction which ones you want to delete and give directions to Justin to proceed, and then he'll come back in November with the results.
Okay, these are the questions that we sort of discussed at the special meeting, and they've been refined a little bit, I noticed, and things. So, are you asking for all of us to take a look at, obviously, take a look at these and get our preferences?
Yes.
Now, we have another meeting scheduled for this, I think.
Just for the results.
For the results,
So we
okay.
need direction from you. So Justin was working on the survey this week.
That's what I thought. All right.
I just wanted to say, I think we should kick it off definitely with number one. I think that's
You like number one?
a
You want to see-
lead-in. It's a lead-in.
So we need to know which ones you don't want. That's the ones we need to know.
Okay, well, you have,
So which ones you don't want? There are 75 questions here. We need to narrow down to 35.
okay.
Is there anyone, if not, you can leave it to staff, we can do it, but we really like to have some direction
Yeah.
from you.
Well, I think we got our input on November first on what was important to the board and what we were really asking, so I'm comfortable with you. We gave our input, so I'm comfortable with you narrowing them down. I think you have a pretty good idea of what we had given you on November first, October first, right?
I'd agree with that. Let the staff do it.
I gave a list of 10
Yeah.
Right.
on
And
the
I-
last meeting, so,
I
you
didn't
know,
think so.
and I noticed some of them are in here, so I'm comfortable with that.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, we'll open it up to public comments. Mr. Mosier, you'd like to speak on this item?
Thank you, President Schaefer and members of the board. My name is Jim Mosier. First of all, at public meetings, I don't like giving out incorrect information, and I can't quite remember what I said at the last meeting about the registrar's database, which Justin is proposing to base the survey on, and how many of your ratepayers would have phone numbers in that. My memory of it from 2 years ago was a little bit foggy, and the database contains phone numbers for about half of the voters. I may have suggested it was a smaller number. What I remembered was the number of emails, and there's only an email address for about 1 in 7 of the voters currently. And some of the phone numbers may be very old because people don't update their voter registration. And if they live at the same address for 20, 50 years, the phone number may not be current. So that was correct if I said something about there being very few phone numbers. There are about half the voters have numbers. However, whether that's the appropriate way to start or not, with the survey, I would again suggest that, to me, in a more perfect world where you had more time to work on this, I would think you would want to start with the district's database of who is being charged for district services, which is a list of addresses, and give that list of addresses to Justin, and then see if you could find contact information for somebody at that address to do the survey. In particular, in the sewer district, many of the customers are businesses and industries, and I have no idea whether you're wanting to include them in the survey or not. If you use the voter database, you're not going to be finding any of those properties. So it'd be better, I think, to start with a list of properties and see if you can find somebody to contact there. And so as not to run over my 3 minutes, I don't have a list of the questions, but I did look at it this morning, and one thing that struck me wrong about it, I think, starting kind of on the first page, it was restricting questions to people who, it was asking, are you a homeowner, an owner of your own home, condo, or what? And I'm not sure that that's the right question that you want to ask. People are going to be having trash service, whether they're renting or owning the home, and there's a whole section of questions towards the end. My memory was it was like questions 48 to 70, which are all about the organics program and so forth. And the survey is set up now has that initial question, are you a homeowner? And I don't think that's what you want in the survey. So I think the board probably has to discuss a little more who they want to be asking questions of. I assume you want questions from renters. You may want some answers from business owners. And that question by itself is also not distinguishing what services you get, which is why it would be better to start with the district's own database of which properties are being charged for what. It's a relatively small number, but you are going to be asking people about the trash service who are not receiving trash service, and you're going to be asking people about the sewer service, like in Santa Ana Heights, who are not receiving that. And just asking if they're a homeowner is not going to make that distinction. So if you started with the district's own database, you would know the person you're calling what service they're actually getting.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, just real quick to wrap up from the Chamber of Commerce, I'm glad to see a strong chamber. I think I witnessed a Brown Act violation where 3 members, a majority of the board, went to the Chamber of Commerce and advocated on behalf of the board. How do I know that? Because now this entire board is advocating and saying, hey, you denied us the opportunity to advocate. We intended to act in a Brown Act violation. The The other thing is, please hold off on the remodel at that other building until after the election, the voters tell us.
I'll give you a few extra seconds, but we're talking about item B1. Could you
Actually,
keep your comments to that, please?
item B1 is an election year stunt. To quote the Costa Mesa Sanitary District Board, what's the rush? Did I just hear that this survey is gonna go out right now in a contentious election that says the first question, hey, are we great? Give me a break. The other thing that I wanna confirm is that CR&R is not doing their contractual mailer at the same time as this study is going out. That's what happened last time, right? So here's what happened last time. CR&R did a mailer, said, hey, we're great, we're doing all these wonderful things. Hey, how are we doing out there? At the same time, that's influencing the outcome of this survey. The other thing is I'd like to take you a look at question number 35, and I would like to know from the general manager, where are the facts? You guys went to a judge that said that statements to the public were factually incorrect. I would like you to justify on what fact basis that going out for competitive bid necessarily reduces service. Newport Beach, with our same trash hauler, has a lower rate with better service. While I was remodeling my house, I was living in Newport Shores, and every Monday I was tortured watching the same truck with the same driver, with the same coach, and the same train, watching that driver get out of his truck and throw whatever that resident left at the curb into that container, where the only time they get out of the truck here in Costa Mesa is to give us a citation. That is better service at a lower rate. I ask you to not go out there. That is offensive, and I'd ask you to confirm that CR&R is not doing a mailer consistent with their historical efforts. What's the rush? You heard it last night from the people that have endorsed the incumbents here for the board. They said, what's the rush? No, let's not send this out under the mayor's name. It's a campaign stunt. Right? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Why not delay? Why not introduce some of the things that Mr. Mosier, who's been a great watchdog for the ratepayer here, to take a little bit more time and to remove any concern? I would like you guys to address that. And I'd like you to address number 35 and the wording of that, to justify it here for the record of what facts support that misleading push-pull. All right?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll close. Anybody else? There's no other cards, so we'll close the public comment section. So direction now is Justin to work with staff, refine the questions, get them down to the 35, and proceed with the survey. Okay. Any other comments from the board? Arlene?
Well, I shouldn't say this, but I just wanted to say that I think you were misleading on last night.
Arlene, we're not going to debate.
Okay.
We're not going to debate.
Okay.
There's no reason to debate.
Okay.
It's not appropriate.
Killing me, but I
Okay, so
must
questions,
tell you
Scott, you have the questions of Mr. Patrick. Mr. Pat,
the questions that I asked.
Scott, you have the questions that Mr. Fitzpatrick posed. If
Do you want me to address them?
Do you want to address them now, or do you?
I got here from the president gave me directions to address them. Do you want me to address them?
If you're prepared to address them.
I can address, the two questions. As far as.
If not, let's make sure we follow up with Mr. Fitzpatrick to answer his question.
Well, as far as the Costa Mesa database, we can look into it. I'll talk to staff and see how long it takes. If that's a viable option, and I'll talk to Justin as well, if we can look into that. As far as the question regarding, the lesser service, we can revise that question. It's not a problem. The concern is for, in my experience, just because you get a lower rate doesn't mean you're getting better service, right? There are other haulers out there, but, could they provide the same level of service as CR&R? We don't know, but we can revise that question. It's not an issue.
Just a point of clarification. Question 35 is dealing with the sewers.
Well, I was addressing Patrick's question regarding the CR&R's.
Okay. But question 35 in itself, take a look at that. Justin, if you take a look at that, and if it needs to be revised, we'll certainly take a look at that.
The survey is due when? I think we intend to get the survey early in November.
Yes.
So it won't really be out and be public in have any impact on this election cycle.
By the time the results come out, you know, well, it'll, the intention is to have the results presented to the board before the elections, but again, it's mostly goal, a lot of people will be voting by ballot measures already, but,
Yeah. 40–50% of them doesn't even have a clue that we're doing a survey, so it's really, you know, his concerns are immaterial.
Okay, any other questions on the survey? From staff, you have your direction, we can proceed. Justin, appreciate your help on this, and we'll move from there. All right, thank you all very much. Get that from my board. Okay, item B2, our Sharps and Pharmaceutical Program.
thank you, Mr. President, Elizabeth, Van Reed, and support.
Thank you, Mr. President and fellow board members. The Sharps and Pharmaceuticals Program collects used sharps and pharmaceuticals and subsequently disposes of them for residents free of charge. There are currently 3 pharmacies in Costa Mesa that provide this service, and we recently contracted with the Costa Mesa Senior Center to provide this service for them to dispose of their pharmaceuticals. Proper disposal of sharps and pharmaceuticals ensures the safety of the community and protects the environment. And I'll be giving you an update on the collection for the last 3 fiscal years, as well as the year-to-date progress report. For fiscal year 2013-14, we collected a total of 1,245.40 pounds in pharmaceuticals and 1,611.80 pounds in sharps. In fiscal year 14-15, we collected a total of 1,518.20 pounds in pharmaceuticals and a total of 2,136.80 pounds in sharps. Fiscal year 15-16, we collected a total of 1,805.85 pounds in pharmaceuticals and 2,351.45 pounds in sharps. That itself was an 84% increase and a 91% increase in sharps. Despite the decline in the participating pharmacies, we've seen it steadily increase, and which is why we went with the senior center to provide the pharmaceuticals collection. And in the graph below, you'll see that for the current fiscal year, we have a total of 355.20 pounds in pharmaceuticals and 378 pounds in sharps. We also distributed grant-funded sharp containers, and the pharmacies really like this, and we've gotten some really positive feedback from the residents and from the pharmacies itself. They said that they really like this program, they appreciate the convenience of it, and it's just been a positive program. And we currently have 10,200 budget for sharp program, and we have 12,000 budgets for pharmaceuticals, and we believe that there's adequate funding.
4 pharmacies are Stevens.
It's actually 3 now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's Stevens Pharmacy, Whitefront Pharmacy, and Ramsey's down on the
Down in Portola.
Yeah.
When you go into a restaurant or other facility, sometimes you'll see a Sharps collection in the restroom. Do we have any idea where those folks take their stuff, or is that an individual contract with? Well, because the container looks the same. You know what I mean?
I think those are individual contracts because for the collection itself, we have to have a process because we're dealing with hazardous waste. And so the contractor will pick it up on site and they'll conduct the metering process on site as well. So for the businesses that have it individually, they have to contract it out with different contractors.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily taking up, well, we don't know whether they're taking I seriously doubt they're taking 2 or 3 pharmacies, correct?
No, but we actually we look at the collections on a monthly basis, and if there's like a jump in collection, then we'll talk to the pharmacy and ask them, is there a business that's dropping off
Okay.
the sharps?
Okay.
But we haven't had that issue.
We did have one issue, and that's, we had the fire department came to our facility, and someone dropped off a bunch of used needles and vials of blood in front from the CDC pharmacy, and so it was in a box, right? And so the fire department didn't know what to do with it, and so they came to us, and so we put it in a fire hazard bag, and we called Waste Management, who's the one that picked up them. They came here and gave a special pickup for us, which was greatly appreciated, and so that was a very unique situation, but it was mind-boggling what people are doing, and so we need to get the word out about the safe disposal of sharps, and program at the middle school.
Just a personal question, if you don't mind. As someone who has to test their blood, there's three components. There's the strip and the little needle, and when you put the needle in, you gotta break out that little plastic thing. This is for my own benefit, so I apologize. That little thing that you break off, the little plastic, is that supposed to go in the sharps container?
Well, because there's blood on it.
No, there's no blood on it.
Oh,
Have you ever seen one of the little things you use?
I've had the strips before, and mine is easy, so separated all in one.
Okay, so when I put the little needle in the trigger, you know what I'm talking about? I'll take a picture of it for you.
Okay.
When you put the needle in before you lock it into place to smack yourself, there's a little plastic thing that covers the needle.
Oh, okay, I know which one you're talking about, yeah.
It looks like a pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't need to be in the sharps thing, does
It
it?
doesn't,
Just
no.
the strip and the
Just
needle.
the strip and the needle itself,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, the reason I brought it up is that adds, I'm sure, some weight to whatever goes into that little box. Yeah. Arden?
I would hope that the next newsletter we advertise similar on this, how, we have this
Absolutely.
opportunity to have it more out there.
We receive positive feedback from the residents. They come in all the time and ask for recycling containers,
Good.
and they just love how we have this available, because not many cities have that available for them.
Yeah, and we do
actually get
provide
calls
those,
from other cities
we
too.
provide those at no cost for
Yeah,
our
it's
residents.
free of charge.
Yeah, good program. Okay. Any other questions for staff?
Good program.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth, for the update. I think this is, Scott, this is something we need to have on a quarterly or whatever basis, because I'm obviously curious. Okay, anything else for staff? All right, let's move to our quarterly legislative update, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gina Carano from the Unit Report.
Gina?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. As presented in my legislative report, the 2016 legislative session has come to a close, and 11 of the bills that the district was watching were passed. None of these bills have a direct impact on the district, but some of them do fall in line with the district's values, such as promoting recycling and promoting transparency. The only bill that the district supported that passed was AB 2022 for the use of recycled demonstration water for education purposes. The district's two other support bills, SB 1292 and HR 3353, are continuing bills, so the staff will continue to monitor them through the next legislative session for any new activities. Additionally, staff will continue monitoring SB 1318, AB 1707, and AB 2039, as they are also continuing bills that were on the district's watch list. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about the report.
Questions for Eugene? Just one quick question on, there was a workers' comp bill, and I apologize, I forgot that number, that was, CSDA had put an oppose on it. It had to do with contractors.
Yeah,
I think CSDA changed it to a watch position from an opposed position. Or maybe it was the other way around.
Make it posted.
I think so too.
This is the one where they have to give a 10% bidding preference to contractors that retain employees.
Now, I apologize for putting you on the spot like that. I have the notes at my office. I'll forward that. I just was curious whether you knew if CSD had changed their position on it, or if they've gone back to the original oppose or what. I'll get you to that. I apologize for putting you on the spot like that. Okay, anything else on that item? Okay.
Item 4.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was a request by the board to have District Engineer Rob Himmers bring this item for discussion, and this is the rehabilitation of the President's pump station in Portsmouth. So, Mr. Rob Himmers.
Thank you,
Rob?
Scott and Director. If we run through the staff report, we can hit the highlights. So basically, we have 20 pump stations, and President was one of the earliest, built back in 1953. And unfortunately, we don't have plans of it for some reason. Those plans are not part of the district record. Nevertheless, we have been taking care of it to make sure it functions properly, but since 1989, we were planning on abandoning it. So it was built in 53, and in 89, which would have been when we started looking at the rest of the stations to make them more safe and operate more efficiently, we had started to think about abandoning it. So between 1989 and now, we have not made any substantial improvements. We've made enough to make sure it's reliable, but we always plan to abandon it. So now is our real first crack at remodeling it, and that's part of the presentation. So as we know, Orange County Sanitation District withdrew considerations from the Westside Abandonment Project, which that domino fell over our domino, because we would have to, that cost needs to occur if it's going to work, so we could not budget that amount, so we're going back now, and Scott has made plans to rehabilitate the facilities that were scheduled to be abandoned. Staff believes that President Force Main is number one, so that is part of this presentation, and we'll also explain what we do normally for this type of pump station. So, if we go all the way down to, let's start with the easy stuff. Why don't we go down to map of existing force mains, which is a little icon at the very bottom of the staff report. And if you hit that icon, there is a map of the force main. You can see where the force main starts, which is down in the on the property at 2034 President, who we've been telling for years that we're going to abandon it, and he never believed us, and now we're going to go in and rehabilitate it. That's amazing. So the break we had a couple years ago was about where the T in President Place is. It's just right outside the station when President Schaefer was there. We spent all weekend on the emergency. So the force main is rather long. It's 2,600 feet. The section on the left there, where the station is, that's all in easements. So we have an easement over 2034 President. We have an easement over the property that fronts on National. And once we go, the station is really down in a low area, so we go up that slope between those two homes and we go into National. So this is the alignment of the existing force main. And we're not able to bypass the force main. To bypass the force main, we'd have to have a temporary hose all the way to either the right side of this drawing where Hamilton and Placentia are, or a hose all the way down to the City of Newport Beach pump station, but we have too much flow for their station. So we don't really say that we can bypass the line, which means not use it, so we can empty it, clean it, and work on it. So we can't do that because it's so long. So what we do in those situations is we normally build a parallel force main. So we would probably, our approach probably will be to install a parallel line to this red line. And we get into the street at National, and then we go north and take a right on Oak Street, go all the way down to Federal, go north on Federal a little, and then we go east through another easement. And we have to study those areas and make sure how we're going to get our second pipe in there. So the theory of building a parallel force main is one of the luxuries is you're in the dry, meaning the station is working away, doing its normal thing, pumping through this red line. Meanwhile, we are contractors putting a parallel line in from beginning to end. And then once the line has been constructed, air tested, made sure it's good to go, then in the middle of the night, we turn off the pumps and we hook in both ends. So that's the tie-in, and we do the tie-in in the middle of the night when flow is lowest, and we have the most amount of time before we have to turn the pumps in. So we're planning on building a parallel line to the President Force Main, then tie it in, and then come back at another time and actually do a thorough analysis of this original line and determine whether it would be salvageable as a secondary force main or an emergency force main or a dual force main. There's no local agency such as us that has a dual force main policy. The only agency that does is Orange County Sanitation District, and they're also a regional agency, and they deal in 100-inch diameter pipes and millions of dollars, and we deal in 8-inch pipes and smaller budgets. So it's not really a mandatory policy, but it's probably the next level of emergency response. It would be to have a parallel force main. So we are kind of, as in our force main replacement program, we are leaving the options open on the force mains we are replacing. We're not removing them, we're not filling them with lightweight concrete. We're leaving them there with the idea that we can bring that piker tool down from Canada, or we can clean and maybe line these lines and use them as secondary lines. So, of course, we have to get through our real first round of replacements. So that's the strategy with the force main, and that's an 8-inch diameter pipe, as it says in the staff report. This is our 9th largest station. So we had issues with unreliability from Edison, so there will certainly be a generator designed in as part of the remodel. So that's pretty much a high-level overview of the force main. Are there any questions?
Go ahead, Art. Okay, from the pump station to the streets, is it going to be a no-dig process or a dig process?
We'll probably dig that because it's in a slope and it's not that long, and it'd be simpler to dig it. The topography goes up a hill, leveled out, and then into the street. We've had that area opened up partially before. It'd probably be the opposite of no dig, and we call that open cut. So we'll probably open cut that area. And
What about when you get to National Street?
that's a very good question. Drilling that, it could be drilled from end to end. However, open cut is cheaper. So we would probably go with the least expensive method. Drilling, we usually reserve drilling for special situations where you need to drill. We need to drill at Wilson and Harper.
Yeah.
We got
Yeah.
trash,
Yeah.
right. So this would probably be open cut. And these inconveniences are going to be unfortunate, but when we discussed the environmental aspects of going through Talbot Park, and we told the people who are more interested in having us maintain the stations that there will be some impact when we get to this work. So this shouldn't be anything out of the ordinary. It's just a long pipeline job.
We got one other question. When you go through that second easement, is that, what type of, are we going through people's yards, or are we going in the streets still?
I do believe we are on that property with that long building there. And
Okay.
those are residences that look like they front on Federal, but for the most part, I believe we're in that property with the building.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Rob, I had a question. Having been down in that pump station and the confinement, and it's laborious to get down in there.
Yes.
Is there any way we could look at taking that pump station and moving it, I'm not going to give a direction, but I would think it's south. That part of Canyon Park I don't think is utilized very much. Is there any way of getting that pump station pushed, or again, cost-wise, is it prohibitive to move that pump station out and down into the park a little bit?
That's actually that's a very interesting suggestion. We will look at that. That is possible. We have gravity flow coming in from two different directions. We actually have gravity flow where we show that we're angling to go from the P in place up into the corner there. Meanwhile, there's a gravity line that comes back down that brings the wastewater from the streets up there into the pump station. But we could probably move it. I know that the grade starts to slope into the park, but the city would certainly have to grant us an easement for that. But we will be studying how much room we have and what we need to do with the station. Obviously, we want to maximize storage time, which maximizes response time. So that is a suggestion that I will take under advisement.
Yeah, I remember, the trucks having to get in that little easement that we have in that fenced off area. And if it were down in the park a little bit, would we have access to it from the backside easier through the park?
To come up to that end of the park from the park entrance, which is really off of Arbor.
Right.
That's a long way.
Okay.
So that's the long way. The easy way is to go through this person's yard, and
I just remember that. I mean, as you're looking at it, that yard that was up here.
right.
I mean, that was pretty cumbersome, it seemed like, and there's slope issues there, and just a suggestion.
What we do is, the first thing we do is create a topographic map of what is there. So we send our surveyors out, we shoot everything, we put it on a plan, and now we look at what do we need to do, and how much room do we have, and do we need more room? So that question will be addressed at that point.
Where's the generator for this thing?
There is no permanent generator here now, right?
We have a portable generator because it's a gate around
But
the
doesn't it
station.
sit there, doesn't it stay there?
Yeah, it stays there.
Because
but-
we have the ability to keep it locked in there, right?
Yeah, we can lock it in there, but it is a portable generator. We're gonna put a generator, we'll probably put a permanent one in if that's
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I just-
Right, we would, it'll be part of the design.
Okay, certainly if we do have a permanent generator, and those neighbors need to know about it, then.
Yes, we will, and it'll be a good thing, because we have unreliable power to the present.
You said that earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the force main. If you can go back to the bottom icon and click on the Eldon Avenue pump station. And as mentioned in the staff report, there were half dozen stations that were built to the same potential design. They were called wet well, dry well, and a lot of concrete and steel. And the type of pumps they had, the pump had to be, they were non-submersible pumps, so that the pump itself would have to be, the pump that's down below, and the motor's up another level high, and there's a big long drive shaft between the two. Why don't we wait a minute? Is yours coming up?
It's coming up slow,
slow,
slow.
Low and slow.
It's a pretty extensive file, and
Yeah,
it takes a second.
it's our largest station and it's a large file. But what I'm going to show you is what the stations look like before we before we remodel them, and kind of the concept of how to make things safer. Way back in the day, there wasn't any concern for confined space entry. There wasn't as much emphasis on as much as there is in today's world. We have very high standards now for worker safety and for reliability. So we can't depend on what was determined in 1953 as the design for today. So what we've done is bring yesterday's world into today, but we do that by utilizing the large size of the structure itself. These concrete vaults are 10 by 20 by about 25 feet deep. So that's about the outside dimension. So mine's open now. Is anyone else's?
Yeah,
Not yet.
Art's almost there. I know Bob's is open and mine is open.
Okay, so this will be not exact, but just an example of what we might do out there. As I said, there are no plans for the existing stations, but we will get all that during survey, but the concept will be the same. So when it does open, if you can scroll all the way down to the last page.
I think everybody's get Jim over there. Your chair's open. Yeah. Okay, Rob.
All right, and then go back one. Okay, so you're actually on the lower right-hand corner of this page 7. It says sheet 7 of 8. This is what the station looked like before we did anything to them. And I'm actually going to stand up and use the one that you have so you can follow with me. So basically, thank you, right there. So basically, the concept at this point in time was that the wastewater is on this side of this wall. So here's where the wastewater collects. This is the wet well. This is part of the dry well. This is part of the dry well. The 25-foot ladder that the person climbs down is all the way along that wall. You look down, and it's you and a steel ladder bolted right into the concrete wall. The pumps are down here in the dry. That's the pump. The motor's right here, and there's a shaft that's pretty long. And that thing is spinning anywhere from 800 RPM to 1700 RPM. And when you see something that's that long spinning at 1800 RPM and it's a little bit out of alignment, you realize that you're in a risky situation.
You're in deep cockeye.
Has it ever been out of alignment?
Yes. And these kinds of pumps were also made to have their seals always be wet so that the rubber doesn't dry out. So you're immediately dripping wastewater into the dry area. So all of these stations have a sump pump. And not only that, they had the electrical equipment on the wall. So if you ever had a problem and had to take this apart, you're 25 feet down, anybody else is up here, you're in an area with raw wastewater, one little sump pump, and electrical stuff on the wall. I have been out in the middle of the intersection. We had a station like this for Irvine Station, right in the middle of the intersection. The pumps didn't work. They brought out a bypass pump, and the water was rising, and it was just about to go over the electrical equipment. And then the bypass pump shorted out, because some water hit that, and the water's rising, and it's a Keystone Cops tank. So it can get very exciting. So what do we do with all this? Well, this is yesteryear design. We do not want somebody coming down here 25 feet. We like to go by the stations every day, make sure they're running, check their time clock. We don't want one guy going down a ladder. That's not legal anymore. Cal OSHA confined space. 3 men have to have a tripod, harness, blower, gas detector just to go in. So what do we do to all that? Well, what we do is, and I'm just going to say that if you take from this dry area here, we take this wall out. We took that wall out right there and made everything there wet well. And then we put pumps on a rail and came down this side. So now, and moved all the electrical up. And we kept this little area as the valve ball. So we turned all this dry area to extra storage area, put in the same pumps we have in all the stations for continuity, and all the electrical above ground. And then the person who comes by every day has to just look down and make notes and look at the information on the control panel that's in the electrical station. So why don't you scroll up, please? One story at a time. So this was just a drawing for the new control center. This is the electrical enclosure. That's the thing we put the wrap on today. Want to go up again? One more thing. Okay, right there. We hired a structural engineer. These are concrete beams and columns that have steel in them. So everything here is just concrete and steel. So we used a local engineer, Gary Tucker. He also did some of our seismic studies, but he designed all these beams and all so we could cut holes in the wall. Scroll up another one. Scroll another one. That's just outside the station.
Okay.
Okay, so now here's our new station. That's exactly what we did. So we are now on, what is that in the lower right? Sheet 3. Okay, so here's the after. We saw the before, here's the after. So this wall that we took out, there's just a beam on one side now and a beam on the other side, and the rest of the wall's gone. So now the wet well is all of this area, sloping floor. There's our flight pumps that are submersible. We have our guide rails that go all the way up. And as I mentioned before, we use the top area of the dry well before. We use that as the valve vault. We have all our valves in there. And we put another access. We put another hole in the ceiling. And we put some support beams. And now that became our valve vault. We could have if we had all kinds of room. We could have even used this as more wet wells. We're gonna possibly look at that on this design since, as you mentioned, Mr. President, we may have extra room there. Storage is key. So storage and backup. So we have our submersible pumps, we have our new piping, we have our submersible station, and that meets our today's standards. New doors, new everything. So we reused the concrete and steel, and we turned it into a station that is the same. We did this at 6 to 8 of these, and our guys love it. And if they need to go in the valve vault, that's a confined space entry. But it's in a dry area, there's no leaking in there, no need for a sump pump or anything like that.
Hey, Rob, can I ask a real quick question? On the slide that shows the electrical box control center, it's outside now though, right?
Yes,
All the electric is outside the actual vault.
yes,
So that's one,
right. So the only, water can go all the way up and come out the top, and nothing, no electrical gear will be underwater,
That's what I
except
thought.
for what was made to be underwater,
Right.
which is the pump and the pump cable.
great, okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
And, no problem. And then if you look over on the right side, we kind of drew a 3D to give the contractor an idea of where he was putting in support beams and walls we were cutting and things like that. But that's the process, and that's why the budget shows almost $2 million, because there's a lot of work. And to do this work, you have to have the station bypass. So this would be one where we would put the force main in first, the new force main, then come back, and as part of this design, we figure out how we're gonna operate the pump station and do this work at the same time. So that's part of our design. But that's an overview of converting a old wet well, dry well pump station into a submersible station to meet our standards. Now we can send one guy out to check the station. He doesn't have to go in anything. And Scott even went so far as to get nets, safety nets, so that when you open the door, if you happen to fall, there's a net right there. So it's like more backup.
Depending on who falls.
Hey, Rob, do we get a lot of alarms there currently?
At President,
Yes, no, at Eldon.
Eldon, no, we hardly get any alarms there. We still get most of our alarms out at President.
Okay.
We have a power pole that's right next to the station, and when Scott came in, unfortunately, in came the unreliability of Edison. So that was his charge, was to get us better on emergency response. We were unprepared for unreliable Edison.
Another question, do we check the station every day or not?
Yes, we do. We have a pump station crew.
Okay, just once a week?
One,
Because there's 20 stations, so they
Yeah.
can't get them all in one day.
Yeah.
So it's like once or twice a
they,
week.
they check the SCADA every day. They check the runtime, which is another benefit.
Maybe not on the computer.
Because, you know, I at Molten to Gill Water, because I work there in the summers, they check those stations every day. With all, you know, they have a lot of them, but they check them every day. So
Right.
that's why I asked the question.
We used to check them every day, and then we
Probably before
stopped
SCADA.
checking them
Yeah.
every month. It's been a long road. We had our old SCADA system that was on its last leg. We
Yeah,
replaced
yeah.
that, and that SCADA system was unreliable too. It had its own failures. It kept getting false alarms. So that SCADA system had to go, and now the one we have now is good. So we've been practicing emergency response since Scott got here, and we're getting pretty good at it.
Just one question on it, Bob. For president, what's the worst case scenario?
Well, we've already had the worst case scenario.
Is that the one we had before?
We have had two 20,000 gallon spills.
Into Canyon Park?
Yes. And we know exactly where the water goes,
Yeah.
and it doesn't go anywhere. And when we had the first one, we had some long discussions with the scientists at Orange County Sanitation District about what happens to that 20,000 gallons versus what's already in the water there and all. And we're very fortunate that it doesn't go anywhere and that biologically it mitigates itself over time. But we've had plenty of, and they have not been our fault. They've been Edison-related problems that have caused our service.
Similar to what we had at the lagoons, eh?
That's why Scott had the crew park one of our emergency items out there, so it's right there.
Oh, the station will, replace that equipment in the dry well, to make it into a wet well. How long will we have to bypass that station? And how will we do that?
We've done it before, and we'll do it again.
Do we drop submersible pumps in the wet well?
Well, we can, what can be done is there's a couple of ways. One is, we call the manhole right before the station, the collection manhole, where the lines come in. You can bypass out of that collection manhole with a pump. Or we could build a new temporary tank or something and use that and work in the dry. But we will manage to work in the dry. Can't do all of this. We have to redo the floor and redo all the walls.
Yeah.
And the whole thing has to be.
Well, how long will it?
It's about a 4-week.
Only 4 weeks. And that was the most risky process when I worked at Orange County Sand District, and they were trying to bypass pump stations. And so you've had success with the types of pumps that you put in those manholes.
Yes.
Okay.
One station, we had an incoming line, and one of our contractors bolted the pump right to the wall. So there was the pump right there, and then he supported it, and it pumped right up.
Yeah.
So just one simple item like that was very inexpensive and saved the day.
Well, the problems we had were the pumps ragging up.
Yeah.
In a foreign place. But anyway, if you've had experience with that, you probably have got the right pumps.
Right. Yes, we're bypassing is part of sewer.
Yeah. No, we were bypassing
Right.
large
Big
amounts of water.
ones, yeah.
Right. So that's what we're going
Yeah.
to do.
I remember Bill Clark going through, he was
Right.
always concerned about that part of the process.
And as we know, the force mains are the sweeping giants, so we always want to take care of the force mains. So this is one of the projects that is being required by not doing the damage.
What's your time, what's our timeline? What are we looking at in terms of start?
Right now, we're finishing the Victoria Street force main plans and stuff. And as soon as it goes out to bid, which it won't be much longer, then I'll sit down with Scott and make some budgets for all of the design.
So we're looking at next year, probably. At the middle of next year?
Yeah. And then you probably have contingency plans with those pumps. One or more pumps fail.
Right.
Good deal.
Randy.
Thank you.
It's really good, Rob, thank you. Any other questions for Rob or anybody else? Very thorough and always to the point, thank you so much. So, okay, oral communications and direct comments?
I got one. I called Scott the other day about Wilson and Harbor, Rob, because I was driving down the street like at 11 and I saw the workers out there. And I said, hey, did something happen? Because I knew your time schedule from 6 till 6.
They were, last night, they were potholing. So, we did survey Monday morning. We got everything staked. Then Monday night and Tuesday night is potholing. Digging a hole, determining the depth of the utility that's crossing where our sewer goes. So So not sure if they're gonna be doing any more potholing tonight, but now we take all the results in,
Okay.
put all those coordinates into the computers and turn that drill loose.
Yeah, 'cause this morning I drove by at like 4 o'clock and there was nobody working. So God, you know, they must have left early.
4 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, I'm gonna get some coffee.
Joe, on Tuesday morning, Joe left at 4 AM.
Okay.
And, I haven't spoken to him yet.
Okay, so it's, they won't start the work on it till you evaluate the potholes.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, and, we'll probably not wanna start on like a Thursday or Friday. We'll probably kill it until next week.
There's another project on Harbor, south of Wilson, on the east side. That's not our project, is it? Somebody is
No,
digging,
Oh.
look like they're also potholing,
Yeah.
digging squares about this, whole bunch of-
Mesa Water.
whole bunch of activity there.
It's Mesa Water. Doing preventive maintenance.
They're probably looking for
Started a
that.
long time ago.
The Metropolitan Water District has decided to join the National Water Research Institute, which is $50,000 a year.
Nice.
And that'll make our seventh member. So that's kind of a big deal.
That's a real big deal. I have a couple of comments if you're interested in.
I'd like to hear your comment.
From last night. As you know, the city council was considering a resolution last night in support of Measure TT, and we decided to give them our opinion. Before I talk about what happened with us, if I can count the number of years in this room in terms of public service and the number of meetings we've all been to, and Arlene and I sitting up there in the dais for the city council and you guys for the school board, I'll bet I would wager that you had never been to a meeting like there was last night. I have never seen anything like what happened last night in my life. It was, and this had nothing to do with us. There was a speaker who got up under public comments to talk about some issues with Mesa Water. And he was criticizing Mesa Water for what they're doing, and had nothing to do with Measure TT. Had nothing to do with us or anybody. It was he wanted to complain about Mesa Water. Why he didn't go to Mesa Water to complain, I'm not sure. But anyway, so he started to talk, an elderly gentleman, and the mayor cut him off and said, "We're going to talk about that later. We don't want you to talk about it now." And he says, he was confused. Well, then other people on the dais started saying, "No, this isn't about that resolution. This is about something else. Let him talk." And the mayor kept saying, "No, we're going to bring it up later." And it got, I mean, it was like a circus up there. I don't know how to do it. So Katrina was trying to get a point across that he was talking about something else. And Mr. Monahan, out of nowhere, slams his hand on the dais and screamed, "Quit interrupting." Katrina looked like she'd been hit by a gun. Anyway, so they took a break, and that was all. Well, when they came back, Katrina was absent. Her husband showed up a few minutes later, but it was pretty, if you get a chance to look at the tape, look at it. So anyway, that was just my observation as a citizen. When it got to the Measure TT part, the first speaker was Mr. Fitzpatrick. Mr. Temianka spoke. Several other people spoke. Mr. Fitzpatrick didn't talk about the resolution. He talked about, he didn't talk about the trash contract.
Oh, come on.
He did not mention the trash
He
contract.
didn't have time, probably.
Well, I'm sure his 3 minutes stretched. In his typical manner, he was screaming at the council. I mean, it was pretty much like you saw him this morning. He brought up a couple of points about, he had our new, thanks a lot for letting the newsletter go out yesterday. I mean, I really appreciate that. He had a copy of that, and of course, everything we said was wrong, and none of us have taken a stance on consolidation. And maybe that's Mr. Fitzpatrick texting. He was pretty critical of us in terms of we don't do anything correctly. All we do is criticize. We don't take a, what's our stance on the
Might wanna look in
consolidation?
the mirror.
Well, and it was, and one thing he brought up, and I'm going to ask Scott to respond to Mr. Fitzpatrick in this one issue. He brought up Mark and Wendy, and it's a total conflict of interest. And I mean, he really was obnoxious about it. We have done our due diligence in this situation.
Scott has talked to me about that
Have you mentioned it to
on
him?
the phone.
That
No, I've mentioned nothing about this. I mean, it's,
you need to set him straight that the FPPC rule, whatever we did, was correct. It's appropriate. There's no.
I really wasn't gonna respond unless the press got into it, because I don't know if people are really listening to him.
Okay, all right.
Dignified.
Okay, that's fine. I'm tired of
If
hearing
Luke calls
it.
me about it, then I'll respond to it.
Okay.
But
All right, that's a better.
but I mean, if you're gonna bring it up, and we have this in a public meeting right now, it's being video recorded, I can tell you, I'll show you, before we hired Wendy, we went out and asked the FPPC, the Fair Political Practice Commission, which is the watchdog that heavily fines people for violating conflict of interest laws, right? And we asked them, if we hired Wendy, who reports to me, Mark Davis, who's her husband, reports to the board as an officer, as a officer of the district, is there a conflict of interest? And the FPPC never got the letter. We can share it with the public. Says no, they're fine to proceed hiring Wendy. Then at the after all the news has been breaking about the embezzlement that's going on in Placentia, what happened in Pasadena, all this stuff. So let's just get this out there. Let's in case the question comes up, hey, we've got a husband and a wife. What are you doing to watch our money? So we had an auditor come out and did a special audit of our internal controls, and the auditor found our internal controls are intact. He made some minor recommendations, which we're implementing. It was no alarms, but the internal control says the auditor says our internal controls are intact as it is right now.
I just, for your benefit and for your husband, since he's not here, we made the right decision at the time. Nothing has proven us wrong, and I want that in the public, that we have all the confidence in Mark and Wendy, and that there's no conflict. There's no conflict.
No, we know it's not. We did our due diligence.
I just wonder
Wendy's
if
doing
we
a
shouldn't
fantastic
bring
job.
this up on the 19th.
Oh, well, if it comes up, we will.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, why wait? Why just say in talking?
Because he's the only one that's bringing up the issue.
He's the only one that's brought it
No one
up.
else.
No one else
It's really,
did that.
it's really,
Because that was terrible.
Now, other speakers that got up last night, Mr. Temianka spoke. He didn't say anything.
No.
He really didn't say anything, except that he kind of looked at me and said, I'm asking the sanitary district to not go forward with their tenant improvements at their new building until after the election. And I didn't get a chance to respond. Interesting, when Temianka was speaking, Sandy Guinness said, can I ask Mr. Temianka a question? And the mayor said, no, we're not going to ask questions to any of the commenters. So that was it. Several people got up and spoke about, Terry Kochen got up and talked about, well, look at the tape. He was funny, and yeah.
Just let me add
yeah.
one thing.
Yeah.
On his part, when he spoke, he kept speaking to the audience.
Oh, Temianka.
And he kept talking, and the council kept saying, talk to us.
No, Katrina kept saying,
Talk
to us. And he says, oh, I guess I'm not used to coming to city council meetings or
about
something.
3 times.
Um,
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But this comment about stopping the construction until after the election, that's pretty indicative of the fact that they think the election's going to force the merger. I mean, that was it. A couple people spoke about in support. A lot of people spoke for
Favor the merger,
favor the merger.
not
Yeah.
force anything.
Well, they think it's going to force it. I think.
They're hoping that it'll be,
Yeah.
another piece of data.
Well, by luck of the draw, I got to speak at the very end, and
Yeah.
3 minutes was not enough to do our little talk. So as the yellow light came on, I think I got the important points across.
Yes, you did.
I think they understood. I knew how they were going to vote. I mean, it didn't really make a hill of beans, but so then I sat down, and they discussed, and Mensinger called me back up. Mayor called me back up, so that the council could ask me questions.
Yeah.
Now remember, remember he said no questions to the commenters. So there were several questions, mostly from Righeimer. Righeimer asked me, he says, did Mesa Water invite you to a meeting? And I said, no. He said, he kind of went, they never invited you to a meeting? And I said, no. He says, are you sure they didn't invite you to a meeting? And I said, no. I said, they invited us to spend or to pay for half of their study. I said, there was no meeting. It was just to pay. And he got, anyway. So a couple of other questions. Sandy asked me a couple of questions. Righeimer then looked at me and he said, do you have any reserves in your trash? And I was off. To be honest with all of you, I got caught off guard. I said, no, I don't believe. I said, we have no infrastructure for trash. I said, so I don't think we have any. Well, I forgot about our. I just completely forgot. That's why I texted you. Okay. And he says, how long have you been on that board? And I said, well, I was on it for a couple of years in the 90s and now 6 years now. And then I kept waiting for him to take it further, and he says, and you don't know about the reserves? I said, Jim, I don't think we have any reserves, but I'll check. Okay. Well, obviously we do have reserves.
So we'll go over
And
that
stop.
on the district.
And I was very emphatic about, when several of the council members asked me questions, and I said, look, we'll discuss that on the 19th. Make sure you come. So I went and sat back down. They started, council comments, Sandy brought up the transparency thing, about how Mesa is not transparent. Then she started talking about benefits. And she yelled out, Mr. Schaefer, do you know what the benefits are? I said, maybe you ought to ask Mesa Water. Temianka, after he spoke, left. He was sticking around. He just left. He knew. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Did they discuss?
I felt prepared. After talking to you yesterday about my anxieties, I was very prepared. Katrina offered a motion to continue the item.
Based on what I had said.
I think what you'd said earlier.
Yeah.
And she wanted it continued to have Mesa and us meet with the city and talk about it.
Yeah.
And so she offered a motion. Sandy seconded it. Then Gary motioned. I moved to approve the resolution, 3-2. So, and then the big comment after that was, Katrina says, now what's the next step, Mr. Baker? Are you going to do a press release? Because this is nothing more than a campaign thing for the mayor. Those people don't like each other up there.
How did Mr. Baker respond?
He said, I've not been given direction. And he said that after all the resolutions they did last night.
When I spoke to him, I said, I think it was a good agenda report. I think Dan did as good as he could do because he didn't have, access to the LA consulting report, which was the first report, I could not find it. I have a copy, but I couldn't find it on the website. So I think Dan did as good as he could do writing the.
Couldn't we send him a copy?
He had a copy.
No, of the first report.
I think Dan had a copy of that.
Oh, did he?
He didn't mention it.
He
though.
didn't mention it.
He didn't mention it in the
Okay.
thing. I said, I would ask that you delay the decision on this process until you all have a chance to read the first. What the first.
I think the black eye really with the city and Mesa Water is the liaison committee. We've been meeting for 13 years, and none of them ever brought it up. In fact, the last two liaison committees, the city and Mesa Water canceled.
Yeah,
So every opportunity for them to bring it, and that's when Katrina said that question, asked that question.
Somebody, I think Righeimer asked me a question. I said, well, I said, we have this liaison committee which you've all been, you've attended, and I said, it's been going on for a long time, and Hatch acknowledged that it had been going on for years. I said, it's never been approached. It's never been brought up on an agenda item.
Never.
And so,
Never. So,
Righeimer had said something about this being talked about for a year. And of course, you heard Mr. Fitzpatrick, who brought up the consolidation in 2011, which you didn't. And so,
what we talked about was shared services.
shared services, right?
Shared service, that's different than consolidation.
Yeah.
Shared service is what we do with OCSD, and with
Right.
the city of Costa Mesa, and nothing about consolidated.
Is that 5.2 million in reserve for the trash, the money that we were gonna use to pay off or lower the rate, or keep the
It's a
rate
rate
the same?
It's a
stabilization.
rate, it's a rate stabilization.
Well, that was that could have been an opportunity for us to tell them that, hey, we're gonna do what you've already asked us
Yeah,
to do.
and I wasn't
What time
thinking.
was the item brought up?
That's a good point.
It'll
10
be,
o'clock.
we'll have all
I
that at
could've
the
stayed
State of the
almost.
District, presentation. Again, it'll be videotaped too, so Costa Mesa Brief's gonna be videotape it, so we'll have it on our website, so people who aren't there, it'll be available for people to see, so.
Yeah, but
it's on there.
we can't forget that point.
No, it's, we need to bring that, and again, it looked like a short agenda last night.
Yeah.
And I had asked Jeff West when he thought our item would come up, and he said, well, they could move it up. He says probably between, around 7 to 7. So I got there
Yeah, they didn't move it.
6:20, just as Bob was leaving. I could have gone to Lions Club, had dinner,
Come
because
back.
the item didn't come up until 10 o'clock, because Mensinger had to call 3 breaks.
Yeah.
It got so
Contentious.
contentious up there that he kept calling breaks to let people calm down.
You know, was it Alex that got up? Because I don't know Alex. I've
Yeah,
never
was
seen
he the
him.
one that they got
But
after?
anyway,
No.
he got up and he gave a good speech.
Did a great job.
He did a good
He's a
job
smart guy.
on
Yeah.
us.
He challenged
on-
Fissler to a
yes,
debate.
and on the sanitary district, and gave some facts. It was really good.
He had Alex had some slides that were pictures of Mesa
Yeah.
Water's bill, and
Really good.
we actually got our bill Monday, and the same wording is on the bill. We've talked about it. The newsletter is the same. Nothing has changed even after the court told them they had to change.
What
So
did Alex say?
And there were a lot of people that did talk for us. They got
Oh, yeah.
up and they said their feelings and how, what's going on and why now, and it's so politically minded and all this. I just wanted to say that, when you stopped me from talking, I just wanted to say,
last night?
Today.
today.
Oh, what you were
Yeah.
gonna say?
And the only thing I was gonna say to him is, he's confused, that he kept saying, why are we rushing? We're not rushing, they are. We kept saying the whole time, why are you rushing? Why can't we sit down and talk?
Yeah.
And they're the ones that were, that's all I wanted to say.
I know, but
I know.
I know
No,
how
it's
I
okay.
know what he would have done.
I know, but I was
You would give him the floor to answer his questions.
I know.
Another.
Oh,
Other one did it, so.
okay.
Okay, anyway, it was
It was a
glad to be of service to the district last night.
Thanks,
crazy
Mike, for doing
meeting.
that.
Really.
I
You know,
stayed
Jim,
the whole time.
Thanks for saying that, but, yeah, and Arlene was so punch drunk last night, she kept calling me Jim, so.
I was so upset. he says, oh, that's your husband.
Yeah.
I was so upset. I
Well,
was
you
trying
know,
to get his
you know what my wife
attention.
said to me? I told her what you did. She says, was she confusing you with Jim Ferryman or her husband? So, anyway, any other comments from the directors, staff? Thank you. Another excellent study session, and we'll see you all on the 19th and the 18th.
No,
The
we'll
board.
see you in San Diego.
Oh, that's right. See you in San Diego next week. Okay, we're adjourned.
This afternoon.